Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tenley Dahlstrom, and I'm the director of the CalTestBed program at New Energy Nexus. And I want to thank you all for joining us today for our information session about our upcoming application for the CalTestBed program. I want to recognize our partners. I'm really grateful for our partners at LACI for co-hosting this with us. And a little further on in this presentation, you'll be hearing from Molly Crete about the support that LACI provides to clean energy entrepreneurs in the ecosystem as well. And I also want to thank our colleagues at Momentum for managing the webinar and helping us with the back-end logistics of all of this. So I'd like to go over the agenda today. First, I'll provide an introduction to New Energy Nexus and go over what our goals are as an organization. And then I'd like to introduce you to Molly at Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator. And then I will go over an overview of the value proposition of CalTestBed and what CalTestBed offers to clean energy innovators in the state of California. After that, I'll talk about eligibility for the program, how it works, the review and selection process for voucher recipients, our application timeframe, and then the agreement structure. And we'll leave time at the end for any questions. And I want to say, if you have questions as we're going through the presentation, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box for the webinar. So New Energy Nexus is an international organization that supports clean energy entrepreneurs with funds, accelerators, and networks. And we actually started in California. And when I joined just 4 years ago, we were called the California Clean Energy Fund, and we evolved into New Energy Nexus as our programs have grown to include programs in China, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, India, Australia, Uganda, and Nigeria. And so now we're operating in 10 different countries, and we have a second US office in New York with a program called the Clean Fight. And we're really excited about this exponential growth that we've been experiencing. And now I would like to introduce our regional energy innovation cluster partner in the greater Los Angeles area, and it's the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator. And we have Molly Crete, who is the Senior Program Manager of Incubation Services, to share a little bit about how LACI supports clean energy entrepreneurs in California.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tenley. And as I mentioned in the chat, super excited to be here today. And really, truly, the relationship both ways, we value this partnership so much. To tell you a little bit more, Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator is quite a mouthful, so I'm going to shorten it to LACI, otherwise known as LACI. And our mission at LACI is building an inclusive green economy with a strong focus on Southern California, as well as with the city of Los Angeles. In order to do that, we focus on 3 tech priorities within the startups we serve, the partnerships that we gain through the work that we do within our teams, and as well as kind of the work we're doing around the community. So what we focus on primarily is transportation and really honing in on what zero emissions transportation looks like. We also focus on clean energy. This covers so many different gamuts, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, but really how are we providing grid solutions within our community and finding alternative clean ways to provide energy. Then we also look at what we call smart and sustainable cities, or otherwise known as a circular economy. How are we, diverting waste from landfill? How are we kind of saving different GHG emissions and things like that? In order to kind of do the work that we do within those tech priorities, we structure our organization within 3 strategies, or what we call 3 pillars. So I sit on the team on the first, on the left-hand side of the middle chart here, the Unlocking Innovation team. And really we're doing just that. We are unlocking innovation through the work that we provide with our startups. So this is the founder-facing team. We are the folks that are focused primarily on that like curriculum development, business development within our startups, and act as the main point of contact for the founders that go through our various programs, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. We also house in this team our executive residents, our coaches that provide, in-class coaching. They facilitate some of our curriculum sessions, but they're really meeting with our startups on a weekly basis. We also have our investment team on here, and where we operate our 2 funds. And this is really where we're providing a lot of high resources and connecting with folks like Tenley and the CalTestBed team to really provide our startups with the access and materials that they can use to truly excel their businesses. The market transformation team in the middle here is really the team that's focused on building relationships and partnerships within the city, within the state, within the federal government, and within various kind of corporate partners within our geographic region. So we have something called our Transportation Electrification Partnership, otherwise known as TEP, that we really focus on accelerating the goals that we've set within LA and the state to electrify the city of Los Angeles in time for the Olympics in 2028. We also have, the regional energy cluster that we're sitting on today in collaboration with Tenley and CalTestBed, where we're just connecting with these folks to provide resources and to really accelerate some of the innovations that we have and that we're finding within our startups and within the community. And this is where our pilots live as well. So not only do the startups within some of our programs engage in a small scale pilot, but we're also engaging with the community to do larger scale pilots as well. And then we have our Enhancing Communities team, and this is really the work that drives our diversity, equity, and inclusion programming. This also provides our workforce development and giving access to green jobs within our community and the training it takes to do that. In order to think about impact and how it relates all the way back to that inclusive green economy, we focus as an organization on these 3 impact metrics, but we also encourage our startups to think about the same thing when they come into our program and give them the tools to incorporate some of that as well. So we focus on environmental impact, of course, we have Cleantech within our name, but also the social and economic piece. Are we creating jobs within the local communities? Are we providing underrepresented communities access and availability to join the green workforce? We also look at impact in a various amount of other ways. If you advance to the next slide, thank you so much. So we quantify some of this impact within these 5 different sectors here. So throughout our 10 years, we've been able to impact over 315 startups. We've been able to see through their growth that they have found, they have raised, near $700 million in funding, close to 320 million in revenue, and that we're getting close to that 2,500 jobs created. That's at LACI and the jobs that we create within our internal team, but as well as our startups. And we really see that all of those things combined is providing this 555 million long-term economic impact. And we're really proud to be recognized by UBI Global as one of the top business incubators worldwide for the last 7 years. So to dive a little bit deeper into those programs that I mentioned underneath the Unlocking Innovation team, we have 4 different programs that we focus on, and I'll lightly touch on a few of those. So our Founders Business Accelerator program, this is really hyper-focused on the city of LA and the small businesses that really are the backbone for what our communities and our neighbors and everything that we're using here. So this is the one program out of the 4 that is not focused on clean tech, although we do try to find companies within here that have impact in some way, right, within the community or within the different services or products that they're providing. This program is free and it is 10 weeks long. The dates that you'll see at the bottom here is sort of when we have our live cohorts. So we have just closed applications for cohort 7, and that will launch in October. And we have an active cohort right now. The Innovators program, and actually the way that this whole chart is set up is that we start to sort of expand on the development of each startup that would participate. Our Innovators program is our free light touch network access. We use the analogy that this is sort of our dating phase. We're just starting to get to know you. We see this as a potential pipeline into our later stage programs, but this is really where companies have, a prototype in place that they're maybe still iterating on. They're trying to find that second founder, or they're really kind of testing and validating their technology. And we have our application cycle has recently closed as well, but we'll be launching our next cohort in October. This happens, recruitment happens for this program every year, just once a year. But we really love the transition that we can see from Founders Business Accelerator to Innovators to our incubation program, which is somewhat of our core. This is 2 years long, and that's one of the reasons why we say that. And this is where we're really providing that deep hands-on support. You're getting more mentorship hours. You're actually doing a small scale pilot that's funded by LACI. And we're really in this program helping you to get to commercialization and or your first follow-on funding. So a lot of times they're coming in as a pre-seed and or a seed, or we're helping you to do that first fundraising round. So there's lots of different business services that are accepted here, but still focusing on the clean tech focus within zero emissions mobility, clean energy, and circular economy. And then we have our market access program, and this is for the later stage companies, typically coming in with Series A or above. And this is 1 to 2 years, depending on the pilot. So this is really folks that are coming in, boots on the ground, ready to just put a shovel in the ground and develop and execute on a pilot. So these are much larger scale in terms of the pilot deployment, but it's really providing more resources and really helping to support this job creation and economic and social impact that we're looking for as well. After I'm done speaking, I'm going to share a bunch of links in the chat so you can find out more about these programs. But at this point, and I'm going to stay and happy to answer questions throughout the way. But I will turn it back over to Tenley to tell you more about CalTestBed. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Molly. We really appreciate you providing an overview of LACI's support programs in the clean energy space. And thank you for sticking around to answer questions. I really appreciate it. So our next part of our presentation today is just an overview of CalTestBed. And so I'd like to move into a brief introduction. The California Testbed Initiative is a laboratory voucher and commercialization development program for innovators in the clean energy space. And we're really looking to bring mid to later stage clean energy concepts to market. And it's made possible by a grant from the California Energy Commission. CalTestBed accelerates entrepreneurs by awarding vouchers. So the entrepreneurs themselves will not get the funding, but they will get a voucher worth up to $300,000 to test technologies at one of more than 60 testbed facilities across Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and 9 University of California campuses. So all of those testing facilities can be found in our testbed directory. And I just want to make sure that it is very clear that the funding does not go directly to the entrepreneurs. They develop a statement of work with the principal investigator at the lab that they are partnering with to develop a scope of work. And then that scope of work can be budgeted up to $300,000. So just to clarify that for any potential applicants. So CalTestBed really recognizes entrepreneurs' struggles in accelerating their pathway to commercialization, and that we have formed a partnership, an implementation partnership with MOUs with the UC Office of the President and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, so that they will provide the testing. There's more than 60 facilities at those entities, and we're expanding it every year. We actually started with only 28. And so one of the great things about CalTestBed is that we negotiated that the entrepreneurs' confidentiality and IP have the highest level of protection as possible, because we're really trying to, make sure that the entrepreneurs don't lose any of their IP as they're conducting their testing, and that they have the best chance possible to get that third-party testing that they need to de-risk their innovations and accelerate towards commercialization. The CalTestBed benefits, as a CalTestBed recipient, you'll gain access to a number of benefits that will help refine your prototype and advance your product toward commercialization. And so I already mentioned the voucher that could be worth up to $300,000 for use at one of the participating test beds to cover the cost of testing for your prototype. The period of performance for this testing can be 9 months of active testing. And then there is a buffer 1 month to set up any of the testing and a buffer 1 month to tear down and conduct reporting at the end. So the entire period of performance could be up to 11 months. We also have a powerful network and cumulative resources of all of our partners. So the UC system and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, there's a lot of expertise. There's a lot of programs that they run. And so it's a really incredible network. We also have opportunities to present your product to targeted customer groups and next level commercialization partners. And we also provide access to experienced clean energy entrepreneurs, industry experts, and prospective partners and utilities at our annual symposium and through all of our New Energy Nexus networks. The annual symposium is a nationwide symposium, and it is focused on really highlighting the entrepreneurs that we're supporting with this program, highlighting not only their innovation, but also their thought leadership in this space by putting them on panels where you can do an initial 3-minute pitch, but then you're on a panel where you're discussing topics related to your technology or just the general landscape of being an entrepreneur in this space. And in the past, we've had some incredible speakers like Jigar Shah, the director of the Loans Program Office at DOE, the president of the University of California. We've had some very high-level speakers. So this is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. We're also providing access to additional funding opportunities through the Empower Innovation Network platform. And that is a platform that was funded by the California Energy Commission. And it is an effort to kind of, it's a clearinghouse for all funding opportunities in the clean energy space. So it's almost like a boutique LinkedIn specifically for clean energy innovation, innovators, funders, and anybody who is interested in learning about the ecosystem in the state of California. So it's a really important network to be part of. And we also have a community and ecosystem of fellow CalTestBed voucher recipients. We have 40 companies that we've supported through our first 2 cohorts, and they can also be a resource and kind of provide some mentorship and guidance for our newer voucher recipients. Regarding I mentioned the ecosystem, and the California Energy Commission has been very strategic in cultivating an ecosystem that includes regional partners. And so LACI is our regional partner in Greater LA. Activate is our regional partner in the Greater San Francisco Bay Area. Blue Tech Valley is in the Central Valley, and Southern California Energy Innovation Network is in Greater San Diego. And so each of these regional partners and New Energy Nexus, which runs both the CalSeed and CalTestBed programs that are statewide, we meet on a monthly basis to coordinate and collaborate and assist each other with our various efforts, because in this situation, the rising tide lifts all boats, and we're all trying to help each other succeed because we are all focused on a similar mission and vision of, a clean energy future and transitioning to a clean energy economy while benefiting the ratepayers of the state of California. So we deeply appreciate their partnership. In terms of eligibility for the CalTestBed program, what types of innovations will CalTestBed fund? So we really focus on a technology readiness level of between 5 and 7. And that goes from laboratory scale to engineering scale to full scale. But CalTestBed applicants need to have a prototype in hand that is ready for testing. One of the things that we've run into in our first 2 cohorts is that entrepreneurs have applied without having their prototype ready, and it's created an enormous amount of delays in some of the projects that we're working with. So this is something that is a requirement. You have to have a prototype that is ready for testing. We are not going to just continue provide a voucher and then wait for months and months until the prototype is ready. So just please be aware of that. In terms of hardware versus software, CalTestBed will fund both hardware and integrated solutions that fit into one of 10 defined technology types. So CalTestBed innovators have to have at least a hardware component that is innovative to be eligible for this program. So an integrated solution is both an innovative hardware and software piece that works together. And so we need to be very clear that standalone software solutions, even those that complement existing energy infrastructure, are not eligible. There has to be both a hardware and software component for you to be eligible for CalTestBed vouchers. I also want to note that any company that is a CalSeed awardee, and I mentioned CalSeed previously, it's another program that is funded by the California Energy Commission with EPIC funds. They focus on a technology readiness level of 2 to 4. Any existing CalSeed awardee or any previous CalSeed awardee needs to have at least completed their concept award and submitted final reporting to be eligible for CalTestBed, because we cannot have funding overlap in this space. I recognize that there are 2 elements to the CalSeed program. There's a concept award and there's a prototype award. Any eligible applicants need to have at least finished their concept award to be eligible for CalTestBed. And I mentioned that there's 10 technology types, and I know that this is a bit of an eye chart, but we will be circulating this presentation slide deck around so you can read the definitions of these technologies and determine whether or not your innovation is eligible. But I just want to go over the 10 basic categories. There's building technologies, energy efficiency, energy storage, grid technologies, industrial and agricultural innovation, Internet of Things, material-based technologies, renewable generation, transportation, and water technologies. And each of these is defined within this slide, and you can read further to determine whether or not your innovation fits within any of these categories. I also want to mention that I've already mentioned EPIC funds. So the CalTestBed program is funded by the California Energy Commission with electric program investment charge funds. These are funds that are garnered by a very small charge on every ratepayer's bill. So each of the ratepayers in the state of California are all contributing to this overall fund that then supports clean energy innovation. And it is meant to benefit California ratepayers. So every single application has to be aligned with EPIC goals and needs to demonstrate that there is going to be benefit to the California ratepayers. CalTestBed applicants must be located in California and operating in California, provide their California address, and they have to be registered and in good standing with the California Secretary of State. And so when I was talking about EPIC goals, the main goals for the EPIC funding program is to reduce costs for California ratepayers, increase grid reliability in California, and improve the safety of California's energy mix. And so those items are actually going to be asked about in the application. So if you are not operating in California, if you are, don't have a California address, you are not eligible for this program. If you're not registered as a business in the state of California with the Secretary of State and in good standing, you are not eligible for this program. In terms of the types of entities that are eligible, I do want to highlight that both individuals and teams can apply without an organizational affiliation, but I ask any applicants to please apply with the name that you have registered with the state, so that we can easily do our due diligence checking to make sure that all of the applicants are eligible and registered with the state. Businesses, startups, small businesses, and even large companies with new clean energy innovations are welcome to apply. And nonprofit organizations, you are also eligible to apply under this program. I do want to mention, however, that universities are not eligible to apply to this opportunity. If they're, as an entity, if there's a group within a university that is working on an innovation and they have started their own organization or company, that they are eligible. But we ran into an issue with this on our first cohort. And the guidance from the California Energy Commission is that universities as a standalone entity are not eligible to apply. So how does this program work? Or how does this application process work, really? So there is an online application portal, and applicants will apply online. There is then an eligibility and technical review. The eligibility review is an internal review to ensure that all of the eligibility requirements are met. When we have any kind of gray area with the eligibility review, we also bring in CEC folks to take a look and collaborate with us and make sure that we review all of the eligible applicants and make sure that they all meet the eligibility requirements. In terms of the technical review, we have subject matter experts in each of the 10 areas, in each of the 10 technology types. And so each application will be reviewed by 3 technical experts, subject matter experts, and their scores will be averaged. And that will be the final score for each application. So once there is a scoring completed, once all of the subject matter experts submit their scoring, then we go through a meeting, an in-person meeting, to look through and see what the scoring results look like and make the final recommendations from the subject matter experts as recommended voucher recipients. Once that recommendation process is completed, we submit those recommended applicants to the CEC for a once over, just to make sure that the CEC is on board with all of those recommended voucher applicants. And then we conduct a laboratory scoping consultation. Once the CEC gives us a green light, we try to match each of the applicants with their first choice lab to have a scoping conversation about the statement of work, which is a scope, schedule, and budget for the proposed testing, to ensure that both the laboratory partners and the entrepreneurs are on the same page about what is realistic, what things cost in terms of time and commitment from the laboratories, and what is going to be required from the applicants. So they work in collaboration to develop their statement of work. Once the statement of work is completed, that's submitted to me. I go back and forth with the folks at the labs to make sure that, you know, everything's in order and that everything fits within the requirements of the contractual requirements of this program. And then once we have that done, I submit all of the final statements of work to the CEC staff. We do not need to go through a business meeting. We don't have to wait for the entire commission to weigh in on this. We submit it to a pool of staff members at the CEC who then review and ask any clarifying questions. And once they're satisfied that this is a worthwhile investment for EPIC funds, they give us a green light. And then we move into contracting. And once the contracting is completed and fully executed, then the testing begins. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the application review and selection process. Once the application period opens, which will be on July 25th, interested parties will apply with the apply button on caltestbed.com. So once the application's open, there will be a button on our website. We'll also be sending out lots of announcements through our LinkedIn page and through our Twitter account. And I'm hoping that all of our regional energy innovation cluster partners will spread the word about the application's opening, and applicants will have about 4 weeks to submit their completed application. However, I do want to let everybody know that the questions on the application are basically available now. I am making final updates to the application manual. But in that manual, it basically goes through every single question that will be asked in the application. And you can see and start preparing right now how you're going to answer these questions. So there's no excuse for turning things in at midnight on the day of or missing the deadline. So part one of the application, it really includes just a set of initial eligibility questions to ensure that the project meets the geographic, TRL, EPIC alignment, technology type, and other eligibility requirements. And then we also ask the applicant to review and agree to the contracting templates, terms, and conditions. So there are boxes to check, and you will have the ability to look at the templates and all the terms and conditions for this program before you apply. Because just so everyone is very clear, there is no negotiating the terms and conditions of these agreement templates. So if you're not okay with the terms, then perhaps you should not apply. And I would really look at those terms very closely before you submit an application. We've negotiated the best possible terms to support entrepreneurs that we can, trying to make sure that your IP is protected and that your confidentiality is protected. And so I don't think that you'll find better terms for testing anywhere else outside of the CalTestBed program. But I just want to make sure that everybody's clear and they review those terms before they apply, because I don't want anyone wasting their time. The thing that you do have control over is negotiating that statement of work with the principal investigator at the lab. So that's really where the entrepreneur is going to provide a lot of input and ask, clarifying questions of the principal investigator, and make sure that the testing that is scoped in that document is exactly what the entrepreneur needs. So the second part of the application is going to require long form responses to the 4 scoring categories, which include innovation, scalability, feasibility, and market potential. And these are the scoring categories that the technical reviewers are going to look at very closely and provide a score on each one of these categories. These responses are limited to 500 words. And we have in the application manual, it shows the scoring rubric of how we are providing guidance to the technical reviewers, how they should be scoring each of these categories, and what are the most important concepts to look out for. So you have we're trying to be as transparent as possible in the way that we conduct this selection process, so that entrepreneurs have their best possible chance to submit an application that, hits all of our points of requirement. So importantly, I mentioned this before, but the application will require that entrepreneurs select their top 3 choices from the participating testbed partners. And we have a CalTestBed directory that shows every single campus that we're working with and every facility and their capabilities on that campus. There are no, outside of that directory, you can't propose facilities that are not in that directory. So that's your guidelines in terms of what capabilities and what facilities and equipment you have access to under this program. So I would familiarize yourself with that directory. I know it's a little unwieldy, but I think entrepreneurs and innovators have an idea of where they would like to work, and it will be pretty easy for you to identify which campus you'd like to work at and which laboratories and facilities those campuses that you'd like to indicate that you'd like to work at. So please take a look at the directory. So I mentioned that the technical reviewers will be providing scores on each of these 4 scoring categories: innovation, feasibility, scalability, and market potential. I just want to be very clear that each one of these has the same weight. We are not weighting one of these over any of the others. It's a 25% weight for each one of them. And I already mentioned the scoring rubric is in the application manual. I'm providing some updates to the application manual, and that will be available in the next week or so on our website, the updated version. But there are very, very minimal changes and clarifications that are being made to the application manual right now. I also want to note that the selection process, we're trying to serve the entire state of California, entrepreneurs in every region of California. And so one of the things that we do in terms of ensuring geographic representation in our voucher recipient pool is that when the technical reviewers conduct their scoring, we look at each of these regions and select the top scoring from each region so that there are relatively equal numbers of innovators coming from and serving communities in each of these 4 regions. If anybody has questions about that, I'm happy to discuss that. But this is something that the California Energy Commission really wants to make sure that we're not just funding companies that are based in San Francisco or LA, that we're really taking into account the Central Valley and the greater San Diego region and trying to make sure that this opportunity is available to folks throughout the state and that the benefits are reaching people throughout the state as well. In terms of our laboratory scoping consultations, once an applicant is a recommended voucher recipient, they have a very structured meeting with the principal investigator of hopefully their first choice laboratory. And that is about an 1.5 to a 3-hour consultation during which the statement of work will be defined. There will be a project scope and the project schedule. The campus partners, the testing facility partners, will be the ones putting together the budget for this work. The entrepreneur doesn't have a ton of say about what the budget will look like because only the staff at the testing facility knows what it costs to conduct the tests that are going to be proposed in this statement of work. So basically, the entrepreneur, the principal investigators, and the folks on campus collaborate to develop the project scope and the schedule. The on-campus partners develop a budget that is shared with the entrepreneur. Everybody's in agreement, and it gets submitted to me for my first review of that. And so I ask any clarifying questions, and then it's submitted in 3 tranches. So we have like 3 submission phases for these statements of work, so that the ones that are done early, we can get them reviewed and approved and get them moving. And we're not waiting for anybody who's, taking longer to develop their statements of work. We want to provide an opportunity for folks who are moving quickly to not be held back by others within the cohort. So the application timeline is that we're hosting our webinars now. We have our final webinar taking place in collaboration with Activate, which is the San Francisco Bay Area Regional Energy Innovation Cluster Partner, next week on July 14th. That is going to be the final outreach session. The applications are opening July 25th. And so you will have a link on our homepage and CalTestBed.com to click and apply. And they'll be open through midnight, August 19th. The deadline for all the applications, as I mentioned, midnight, or actually it's 11:59 on August 19th. And then the review process will be between August 22nd and October 20th. So this is all the eligibility review and all of the technical review and scoring. On October 20th is when I am going to have the meeting with the technical reviewers to finalize the recommendations. The laboratory consultations will be starting the week of November 21st, and that period will be a period of weeks and potentially even months, because I know November 21st is right before Thanksgiving. Then there's the winter holidays. So I recognize that this is a little bit challenging, but we're a little bit off schedule. And so we're trying to make sure that we provide enough time for all of the entrepreneurs to be able to have those laboratory consultations. And then testing begins dependent on the statement of work being approved by the CEC. So the faster those consultations happen and the faster that the draft scopes of work and budgets are submitted, that's the depending factor on when the testing can start. And I just want to note that you can confirm all the dates and deadlines on CalTestBed.com. And any up-to-date announcements will be on the CalTestBed website. We're going to be doing some updates in the next few days. And then in terms of the agreement structure, I just want to note that this is funding coming from the California Energy Commission. Our legal entity name, the New Energy Nexus legal entity name that is managing this program is CalSAF Ventures, but we all operate under a branding umbrella of New Energy Nexus. But you'll see on any agreements, it will say CalSAF Ventures. So our organization has agreements with each of the 10 campuses, so 9 UC campuses in Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So we have those agreements in place between my organization and those labs. Then there is an agreement between the laboratories and the entrepreneurs that is called the User Agreement for Entrepreneurs. And the statement of work, the approved and signed statement of work, is attached to that user agreement for entrepreneurs. Then the entrepreneur and my organization has a voucher recipient agreement, to which this statement of work is also attached as, attachment number 1. And so that is what binds these agreements together, is that statement of work is basically the master information for all of the agreements between the test bed and the entrepreneur and CalCEF / New Energy Nexus. And so now I'd just like to outline a couple of resources that are currently available. The application manual for last year is available at this link here, but we will be updating that in the next week or so with our just slightly updated application manual. But if you want to get a head start to look at the questions and the kind of all of the information and guidance that's provided to the applicants, that manual will give you 99.9% of what you need. There are very minimal updates to the language. We also have our facilities directory available at this site. And then once the application's open, we do have this video that shows applicants how to set up their login in our system. And it's a click-by-click video, which provides instructions on how you create your login in our application portal. So if anybody's having any troubles with that, we can provide that. We will provide that link so that applicants don't have to stress about creating their login information. And then finally, I want to encourage everybody to connect with our network. The newenergynexus.com website has a link to sign up for the New Energy Nexus newsletter. There are a ton of news stories and funding opportunities in there that I encourage folks to engage with and utilize. There's also our New Energy Network Slack network, which has nearly 5,000 participants in it globally, which is a really amazing network of innovators, funders. There's a ton of news, a lot of potential for creating partnerships as well, and just asking for best practices from some really experienced folks. We also have a YouTube channel. I encourage everybody to follow the CalTestBed and New Energy Nexus Twitter handles. And then there's also, if you could please follow our CalTestBed page in LinkedIn and New Energy Nexus, that would also be great. And then I mentioned the Empower Innovation platform that the CEC is supporting, and the link to that platform is here. It's empowerinnovation.net. So I encourage everybody to explore that. And now I would like to ask if we could move into our Q&A. So, Victoria.
Right. I have one question from Bert Wink. How do we obtain feedback on earlier declined applications?
My understanding is that there was feedback sent to earlier declined applications. But if you send a note to info@caltestbed.com, that email address, we will check in our records to see if there's if that information went out, and we'll be happy to respond to you about any kind of guidance that we may have and feedback that was provided for earlier applications.
Thank you. I also have an anonymous question. Can you talk more about why no software and only hardware?
That is a requirement of the CEC. There's no standalone software up, particularly because this is a test bed opportunity, and it's really meant to bridge a gap for folks who are struggling with getting enough funding to test hardware innovations. From my understanding, it is a lot easier to access testing for software. And so the CEC saw this gap, and that's why they've created this program to really help hardware innovators.
Thank you. Let's see, another anonymous question. What is the best way to make sure we have a competitive application with full tech alignment before we apply?
Well, I would recommend really looking at the application manual. We tried to be as transparent as possible in spelling out everything that is required, all of the expectations, and how everything would be scored. There's the scoring rubric is right in there. And we also provide all of the questions and the things we're looking for in responses to each of those questions. So if you follow the application manual very closely and respond to all of the questions in there, and make sure that your innovation is described as, being in alignment with the EPIC priorities, and making sure that all of your eligibility requirements are addressed. That is my recommendation, is looking at that. We also have an entrepreneur directory on our website of all of the previous awarded vouchers. And the companies. So if you want to take a look at the entrepreneur directory and see what types of innovations we have already recommended for vouchers, that may also help you figure out, how to frame your application.
Thank you. Question from George Holmes. Can you give examples of past statement of works? Is there a cost/equity commitment required to participate?
Oh, no, there is no cost commitment, but the entrepreneurs do have to have a finished prototype. These funds are not meant to support entrepreneurs in building their prototype. This is funding to test existing prototypes. So I just want the entrepreneurs to be really clear on that, and the applicants to be very clear on that this funding is meant to provide support in third-party testing of existing prototypes. So there is no cost share commitment on behalf of the entrepreneurs. They just need to have, a prototype in hand and ready for testing.
Thank you. Another anonymous question. If the research team or lab that I work with is not on the facilities directory, how do we flag that to CalTestBed, or is this only applicable if we win a voucher?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one?
Absolutely.
Missed
If
that.
the research team or lab that I work with is not on the facilities directory, how do we flag that to CalTestBed, or is this only applicable if we win a voucher?
Oh, well, we work with each of the campuses and ask them to update the directory like on an annual basis before every single application period. And we're in the final process of updating the directory right now. But really it's up to, we have an ombudsperson for each campus, and then principal investigators at each campus. And the ombudsman is the one that identifies what labs and facilities are available under this program. So it's not for us to direct them as to what they should make available to us, but it is for them to add it into the directory themselves when we ask for updates. So if you're working with some folks at a lab presently, you should ask them to reach out to the director or the ombudsperson for CalTestBed at that laboratory.
Thank you. Bert Wank would like to know, does the completed MVP need to be demonstrated prior to SOW or by the application deadline?
I mean, ideally, it should be ready. I know that's challenging because there is a process in getting applicants into contract and all of that. There's some time that lapses there, but we are really struggling with some of these entrepreneurs that are not ready and have drugged their feet because they don't have a prototype that they're ready to test. And so that's why we're asking that there is already the TRL 5 to 7. You have to be in that space to be eligible. And so if you're not ready presently, then perhaps it makes sense to wait until the next round.
Thank you. Let's see. Next question from Mark Roast. Expect to have a working prototype in hand after the application, but well before the award time. Could you provide some way of addressing that? We are doing a TRL4 proof of concept.
Well, that's really the response that I just provided was we should make sure that you are at a TRL 5 to 7 when you apply for this program. And so if you're not ready yet, then potentially it makes sense to wait until the next solicitation to apply for CalTestBed. I just know in working with the 40 entrepreneurs that we already have in our first 2 cohorts, that there is always, not always, but there is often something that comes in from out of the blue that presents issues for the development of prototypes. There are hiccups that happen that are unexpected. And so that's why we're requiring a TRL 5 to 7 to be eligible for the application. And if you're not ready, if you are like a TRL 2 to 4, I want to mention that the CalSeed program is opening their next round of applications in Q1. So I think in January, February of next year, that's when the next CalSeed application is going to be open. And that provides direct non-dilutive funding to entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in that, and then their concept award is $150,000 for the first phase, and then all CalSeed applicants can then compete for a prototype award, which is an additional $450,000 of non-dilutive funding. So entrepreneurs can get up to $600,000 through the CalSeed program. If you're not yet eligible for CalTestBed, it may make sense to look at CalSeed if you're at TRL 2 to 4.
All right, that was my last question.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone for their participation. I would really like to thank my partners at Momentum, Kula and Victoria, and Molly. Thank you so much for your participation. And I really appreciate everyone's interest. So please know that we are going to follow up this presentation, this webinar, with an email that will provide a link to the recording, a link to the PowerPoint presentation, and additional links for you that will hopefully provide you more guidance and answer any questions that you may have about CalTestBed. And I hope that you all have a great afternoon. Thanks so much for participating.